Dad perfect events. My son locked me in the house. But he didn't know what I kept in the basement. The sound hit me like a punch to the gut. Click, every lock in my house activating at the same time. Electronic locks on every door, every window, every possible exit. I was standing in my living room, still holding my dinner plate of leftover meatloaf, when I heard it. The sound was cold, mechanical, final. Then came the footsteps. My son Nathan walking away down the gravel driveway, his expensive leather shoes crunching on stones. His BMW started up with that smooth German purr, and I ran to the front door like an old fool. I pushed it with my shoulder. Nothing. Locked tight as a bank vault. Nathan! I banged on the reinforced glass with both fists. Nathan, what the hell is going on? But his taillights were already disappearing into the darkness down our long driveway, and I was left there with my hand pressed against the cold glass, my breath fogging up the surface. My own son, my flesh and blood, had just locked me in my own house like a rabid dog that needed to be put down. My name is Vernon Hoffman. I'm 62 years old, and let me tell you something. I've lived through things that would break most men. I built Hoffman Construction 35 years ago, with nothing but a beat-up pickup truck and my two hands. Started when I was 27, fresh out of the service, with nothing but determination and a willingness to work 16-hour days. Today it's one of the biggest construction companies in the state, with annual revenues pushing $50 million. I survived Vietnam, economic crashes, the death of my wife Beverly 6 months ago from cancer. But I never thought my own son would do this to me. I tried every door in that house, front door, back door, garage door, even the little side door that leads to the garden shed, all locked. The electronic panels next to each one blinked red like angry eyes, red like blood, like betrayal. I found my phone, the one Nathan had upgraded for me last month. No. Signal, 0 bars. Impossible. There's always signal here in the hills. The landline was dead too. When I picked up the receiver, there was nothing but dead silence. No dial tone. Nothing. That's when it hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. This wasn't random. This was planned. Meticulously planned. The new locks Nathan installed last month for your security dad. The latest technology. The phone problems that started after he updated my system to keep you safer from scammers. Patricia being fired 3 weeks ago after 20 years of loyal service because of necessary budget cuts. It all made perfect sense now, fitting together like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle I'd been too blind to see. I sat in Beverly's old chair, the one with the worn fabric where she used to sit, and read her romance novels in the afternoons. The house felt different now, bigger, empty, like a prison instead of a home. The security cameras Nathan installed were humming overhead, their red lights blinking. Steadily, he was watching me from wherever he was, watching me like I was some kind of lab rat in an experiment. For a moment, the weight of it all nearly crushed me. Here I was, Vernon Hoffman, who'd built a multi-million-dollar company from scratch, who'd survived combat in Southeast Asia, who'd buried more friends and family than any man should have to. And now I was trapped like an animal by my own son. The son I'd raised, educated, brought into the business. The son I'd trusted with everything. But then something sparked inside me. Maybe it was the old soldier's instincts kicking in. Maybe it was just plain stubborn pride. But I realized something important. Nathan had made one mistake. A big one. Because that night, while he thought he had me trapped and helpless, I remembered something he never knew about. Something Beverly and I built 30 years ago during the crazy times in the 1980s, when businessmen were getting kidnapped left and right, when having money made you a target. I walked to the basement door. It was an old wooden door that most people wouldn't even notice, tucked away in the hallway next to the kitchen. Nathan never went down there. It's dirty, he'd always say when he was a kid. Smells like mold and old concrete. Perfect. Because what's down there, hidden behind years of dust and forgotten storage boxes, he doesn't know about. Nobody knows except Beverly and me. And she's gone now, taken by that damn cancer that ate her alive in 3 short months. I opened the door and started down the creaky wooden steps, each one groaning under my weight. My knees aren't what they used to be. 62 years and hard living will do that to a man. The basement was small and cluttered, filled with old tools, Christmas decorations, boxes of photos and memories from better times. But I wasn't interested in any of that nostalgic junk. I walked straight to the metal shelf against the back wall, the one that's been sitting in exactly the same spot for 3 decades. My fingers found the hidden latch behind the right frame, just where Howard Davis had installed it all those years ago. Click. The shelf slid to the left on hidden rails, smooth as silk despite the years, revealing what was behind it. A steel door painted the same gray color as the basement wall, invisible unless you knew exactly where to look and what you were looking for. I turned the heavy handle and stepped into total darkness that smelled of cool earth and possibilities. My hand found the flashlight hanging on the hook where I always kept it, right next to the entrance. The beam cut through the darkness like a sword, revealing our secret, our salvation, a tunnel. 6 feet wide, 8 feet high, reinforced concrete walls stretching into blackness. It extended 200 meters north, toward freedom, toward a life Nathan didn't know existed. Beverly and I built this back in 1985, when the kidnappings were at their worst. Businessmen were disappearing left and right, held for ransom sometimes, found dead on remote highways. We hired Howard Davis, a civil engineer and old Army buddy from my Vietnam days. Told him we needed an escape route if things went south. Howard asked no questions, just drew up the plans, kept his mouth shut, and built it right. The construction took 6 months of secret work, mostly at night and on weekends. We told everyone we were putting in a new septic system, which explained all the digging and concrete trucks. Howard's crew thought they were building storm drainage. Only the 3 of us knew the truth. At the end of that tunnel, 200 meters through Carolina clay and bedrock, was a little house in the St. Joseph neighborhood. 5 blocks from my mansion, but it might as well have been another world entirely. We bought it through a shell company Howard set up, paid cash, no mortgage, no paper trail leading back to us. Nobody knew it was ours. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, simple furniture bought at estate sales, canned food in the pantry, bottled, water in the closets, old clothes in the dressers, everything we'd need to disappear if we had to vanish overnight. Beverly always said, "You never know when we'll need it, Vern. Dangers change faces, but they always come back wearing different masks." She was right about that, right about everything, as usual. I walked through that tunnel for the first time in 2 years. Every step felt like walking toward freedom. The concrete was solid, the air circulation system Howard installed still working perfectly. When I reached the other end, I climbed the steps and emerged into the storage room of the little house. Everything was exactly as we'd left it, dust-covered but intact. I changed into the old clothes we kept there, blue jeans, a faded plaid shirt, work boots that had seen better decades. I looked at myself in the cracked mirror hanging on the back of the bedroom door. I wasn't Vernon Hoffman anymore, construction company owner, man of substance and reputation. I was just Eddie, a regular guy from the neighborhood, another invisible old man nobody would look at twice. I stepped outside into the night air for the first time as a free man. It was cool and clean, carrying the smell of wood smoke and somebody's barbecue dinner. Real smells, human smells, not the sterile, monitored air of my electronic prison. I walked to the corner store, bought a newspaper and a cup of coffee, acted normal. The teenage clerk didn't even look up from his phone. Perfect. I was nobody to him, just another customer. I spent that first night in the little house, sleeping in the simple bed with sheets that smelled like lavender fabric softener from years ago. For the first time in months, I slept deeply. No nightmares about losing Beverly. No anxiety about the business. No worry about Nathan's strange behavior. Just peace. The next morning, I was ready when Nathan came to check on his prisoner. I'd returned through the tunnel before dawn, changed back into my pajamas, messed up my hair, practiced looking defeated. When he walked through that front door with his expensive suit and his concerned expression, I was ready to give him the performance of a lifetime. "Dad, you okay? You look tired. I couldn't sleep, son. These new locks, they make me nervous. Why did you lock me in? I don't understand." His face was cold as January concrete. No emotion, no real concern. Just calculation. "It's for your own good, Dad. You're not thinking clearly these days. You need rest. You need to be safe. Safe. From what? From whom? From him, apparently." He left after 10 minutes, probably satisfied that his old man was broken and contained. And I went back to work. Real work. The kind of work I'd learned in the Army and perfected in business over 4 decades. See, Nathan thought he was so smart with his MBA from some fancy college and his modern corporate strategies. For months, he'd been planting seeds with the board members. Dad's memory isn't what it used to be. Sometimes he forgets important meetings, gets confused with contract details, shows up to job sites and doesn't remember why he's there. All lies, every single word, but said with such genuine concern, such filial devotion, that people believed him. Why wouldn't they? He was his son. What kind of monster would lie about his own father's mental health? What Nathan didn't know was that through my double life as Eddie, I'd been watching him too, gathering evidence, following money trails, listening to conversations he thought were private. And what I discovered made my blood run cold. This wasn't just about controlling an old man. This was about stealing everything I'd built and selling it to the highest bidder, regardless of what that meant for American jobs or American families. I found out about A&B Consulting first, a shell company Nathan and his wife, Helen Rodriguez, had set up to funnel money from our accounts. $800,000 over 2 years, almost $1 million stolen from the company I built. With my own hands, siphoned off through fake invoices for consulting services that never existed. But that was just the beginning. Nathan's real plan was much bigger, much more devastating than simple theft. He was negotiating to sell Hoffman Construction to a Chinese investment group called Pacific Development Corporation. Not just a partnership or a joint venture, a complete sale. My American company, built by an American veteran with American sweat and blood, employing 200 American families with mortgages and kids and dreams, sold to foreigners for quick cash that Nathan could pocket and disappear with. And Helen, his manipulative wife with her business degree and her cold, calculating smile, was the mastermind behind it all. I'd watch them together at company events, the way she whispered in his ear, the way she guided conversations toward profit margins and efficiency improvements. She'd identified our company as a perfect acquisition target and married into the family to make it happen. It was brilliant in a sick, twisted way, but I needed proof, real evidence that would hold up in court and convince a jury. Suspicion and gut feelings don't win legal battles. You need documents, recordings, hard evidence that can't be explained away. So I got myself a job. Eddie Vance, down on his luck, needing extra money to pay the bills. City cleaning services, night shift. They were always hiring for the overnight cleaning crews, the invisible army that keeps the business world running while everyone else sleeps. The supervisor, a heavyset guy named Rodriguez with coffee stains on his shirt, barely looked at my application. "You ever worked cleaning before, Eddie?" "All my life, sir. Houses, small offices, whatever needs doing." "Why you looking for work at your age?" "Most guys your age are thinking about retirement." I put on my best beaten-down expression. "Social Security don't cover everything, sir. Wife died last year. Medical bills ate up most of our savings. I still got rent to pay." He nodded, understanding completely. Another casualty of the American healthcare system. "All right, you start Monday. Night shift, 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. We got you assigned to the Hoffman Construction building downtown. You know it?" I almost choked on my own spit. "Yeah, I've heard of it. Big construction company, right?" "That's right. Pay is $15 an hour, cash at the end of each week. Don't touch nothing on the desks. Don't read no papers. Don't use the computers. We catch you doing anything besides cleaning, you're fired, and we call the police. Understood?" "Yes, sir." Understood completely. For 3 weeks, I pushed a mop through the offices I'd once ruled, the executive floor where I'd made million-dollar decisions, where I'd built a reputation for honesty and quality work. Now, I was just another invisible janitor in a blue uniform, emptying trash cans and wiping down conference tables. Nathan walked past me dozens of times during those 3 weeks. He'd stay late, working on his schemes, making phone calls he thought nobody could hear. Sometimes Helen would be with him, and they'd sit in his office, my old office, planning my destruction like they were organizing a company picnic. To them, I was nothing, less than nothing, just an old man in coveralls pushing a cart full of cleaning supplies. They looked right through me like I was a ghost. It was perfect camouflage, and it hurt like hell at the same time. But while I cleaned, I gathered evidence. I photographed documents left on desks after hours. I recorded conversations using a small digital recorder hidden in my cleaning cart. I watched Nathan and Helen plan my downfall, laughing about it like it was the most natural thing in the world. The worst part wasn't the money, though $800,000 is nothing to sneeze at. The worst part was listening to Nathan talk about me like I was already dead and buried. When the old man is completely out of the way, he'd say to Helen, when we get full control of the assets. The old man, his father, disposable. I kept copies of everything, financial records showing the fraudulent transfers, forged documents with my signature, or what was supposed to be my signature. Recordings of Nathan admitting to the theft, to the plan to have me declared mentally incompetent. I even got video of him meeting with the Chinese investors, shaking hands on the deal to sell my life's work to Pacific Development Corporation. During the day, when I was supposed to be locked in my house going slowly crazy, I was actually living my double life in the St. Joseph neighborhood. My neighbor Al Richardson turned out to be the best friend I'd had in years. Retired auto mechanic, 67 years old. Wife died 3 years ago. Kids moved away and never call. We'd drink coffee every morning at 7 a.m., sharp on his back porch, talking about everything and nothing. Baseball, politics, the weather, women we'd loved and lost. Real conversation between two men who'd worked with their hands and knew the value of honest labor. No agenda, no corporate politics, no family drama. Just friendship, pure and simple. You know what's funny about getting old, Eddie? He said one morning, stirring sugar into his black coffee. You realize how much time you wasted on people who didn't deserve it. If only he knew how right he was. 3 weeks of evidence gathering. 3 weeks of watching my son plan my destruction while pretending to be a grieving son, concerned about his father's failing mental health. But I was patient. I'd learned patience in Vietnam, refined it in business. Sometimes the best strategy is to let your enemy think they're winning while you prepare the final blow. That moment came on a Friday in October, emergency board meeting. The agenda was bland corporate speak, future leadership discussion, and transition planning, but I knew exactly what it meant. Nathan was finally ready to make his move. I arrived at the building early that Friday. Evening, still in my janitor uniform, pushing my cleaning cart down the familiar hallways. The board members started arriving at 7:30 p.m. 12 people who would decide the fate of everything I'd built with my own hands. Men and women I'd worked with for years, shared meals with, celebrated successes and weathered failures together. They had no idea they were about to become witnesses to the greatest performance of my life. Nathan arrived last, as always. Confident stride, expensive briefcase, perfectly pressed suit that probably cost more than most people make in a month. He didn't even glance at me as he walked past my cleaning cart. Why would he? I was nobody. Just another piece of furniture in the hallway. The meeting started at 8 p.m. sharp. I could hear Nathan's voice through the heavy conference room door, smooth and professional, laying the groundwork for his betrayal. Gentlemen, ladies, it pains me deeply to bring this matter before you, but we need to discuss my father's declining mental state and what it means for the future of our company. That was my cue. I knocked on the door, no answer. I knocked louder, more insistent. Yes? Nathan's voice, clearly annoyed at the interruption. I pushed my cart into the room slowly, hunched over like an old man defeated by life. Excuse me, gentlemen. Sorry to bother you folks. Just need to empty the trash cans real quick. 12 pairs of eyes looked at me with barely concealed irritation. These were important people with important business. And here was some old janitor interrupting their meeting. Nathan waved his hand dismissively, like he was shooing away a fly. We're in an important meeting here. Can you come back later? But I didn't leave. Instead, I straightened up slowly. I took off my cap and set it carefully on my cleaning cart. Then I removed my glasses, the cheap reading glasses that made my eyes look smaller and weaker. One board member frowned. Sandra Mitchell, who'd been with the company for 15 years, squinted at me like she was trying to solve a puzzle. There was something familiar about the man standing in front of them, something that didn't quite fit. Then I spoke, not in Eddie's quiet, submissive voice, in Vernon Hoffman's voice. The voice of authority they'd heard in this very room hundreds of times over the years. Good evening, everyone. Sorry I'm late to my own meeting. The silence was so complete you could have heard a pin drop on the carpet. Nathan's face went white, completely white, like all the blood had drained out of his body. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Surprised to see me, Nathan? He found his voice, barely a whisper. Dad? What are you doing here? I reached into my cleaning cart and started pulling out files, documents, flash drives, evidence I'd been gathering for 3 weeks. You thought you had me locked up, didn't you? Thought I was helpless, thought I was finished. I threw the first stack of papers onto the conference table. Here's what my son has been doing while I was supposedly losing my mind. More documents hit the table. Financial records showing the shell company, the fraudulent transfers, the stolen money. $800,000 embezzled through A and B Consulting, a fake company set up by Nathan and his wife Helen. Forged signatures on contracts I never saw. Duplicate checks made out to accounts I never authorized. The room exploded. Board members grabbing documents, shouting questions, some standing up in shock. Nathan tried to run, actually tried to bolt for the door, but Eugene Walker, my assistant for 20 years, had moved to block his escape route. But wait, I said, raising my voice over the chaos. There's more, much more. I pulled out the flash drive, held it up so everyone could see. Recordings of my dear son planning to sell this American company to Pacific Development Corporation, a Chinese investment group, planning to sell out 200 American jobs to foreign investors for a quick payday. I plugged the flash drive into the conference room computer. Nathan's voice filled the room, clear as a church bell. Once the old man is completely out of the picture, we can finalize the deal with Pacific Development. $85 million for the whole operation. Dad will never even know what hit him. Helen's voice followed. The medical documentation is ready. Progressive dementia with violent episodes. No court will question a son trying to protect his dangerous father. Sandra Mitchell stood up, her face flushed with anger. Nathan, is this true? Have you been planning to sell the company? Nathan finally found his voice. You don't understand. The Chinese offer was incredible. We could have made a fortune. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Son, you don't seem to understand something important. This company isn't yours to sell, and it never will be. I looked around the table at the board members, these people who had believed Nathan's lies about my mental state. You want to know the truth about my mental health? I've spent the last month living a double life, gathering evidence of my son's betrayal. I've been working as a janitor in my own building, documenting every theft, every lie, every plan to destroy what we built together. Does that sound like a confused old man to you? Eugene Walker was already on his phone. I'm calling the police, Mr. Hoffman. Thank you, Eugene. Call Detective Morrison. Tell him we have a case of embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. Nathan collapsed into his chair like a deflated balloon. All his arrogance, all his smooth confidence, gone in an instant. He looked at me with something I'd never seen in his eyes before. Genuine fear. Dad, please. I'm your son. We can work this out. Family shouldn't... Family? I cut him off. Son, you locked me in my own house. You stole from the company I built. You planned to have me declared insane. You tried to sell my life's work to foreign investors. What part of that sounds like family to you? The police arrived within 10 minutes. Detective Morrison, a good man who'd handled security for some of our construction sites. He listened to my explanation, reviewed the evidence, and did what had to be done. Nathan Hoffman, you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. As they led him away in handcuffs, Nathan looked back at me one last time. You've ruined everything, Dad. I could have made us rich beyond our dreams. Son, I said quietly, we already were rich. We had a company with a reputation built on honesty. We had employees who trusted us. We had something that mattered. But that was never enough for you. The next morning, I didn't go back to the mansion. Instead, I stayed in the little house in St. Joseph. Al Richardson was waiting on his porch with 2 cups of coffee and the biggest grin I'd ever seen. Saw the news, neighbor. Quite a story about some construction company owner catching his son red-handed. I sat down beside him, accepted the coffee, felt the morning sun on my face. Yeah, quite a story. You know what I think, Eddie? What's that, Al? I think that old boy's gonna be just fine. Man who's smart enough to outsmart his own sons probably got plenty of good years left. The company was saved. The employees kept their jobs. Nathan got 7 years in federal prison. Helen was deported back to her home country. And me? I'm 62 years old. I lost my son, but I found my dignity. I lost my mansion, but I found real friendship. I learned that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about the people who stand by you when everything falls apart. Nathan thought he locked me up. but all he really did was set me free. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destroying your enemy. It's proving they never truly knew you at all. When family fails you, remember, the strongest bonds aren't made of blood. They're forged by choice, respect, and the courage to stand up for what's right.